Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are so delighted that you have chosen to log in and tune in tonight, and we want to say welcome to all of our Facebook listeners and those that are watching on YouTube. Welcome to another broadcast of the East County North Star. My name is Dr. Lamont Francis, Senior Pastor of the Delta Bay Church and also Vice President of the East County North Star, which is an online black newspaper found in the summer of 2020 with the purpose of getting information out there with a black lens to empower black communities here in East Contra Costa County in the state of California. We are here to bring the truth to the 47,000 African Americans living in East County alone. And we are your voice, and we're so glad that you could tune in tonight. Now, we had advertised that we're going to have a town hall. The town hall is going to be virtual. We want you to ask your questions if you would like to online. If you like to reach out, we are going to be here to advocate for you and to make sure that your voice is never, ever ignored. We have a special guest tonight, and you know it's on tonight. Yeah, it's like watching the Arsenio Hall show knowing Eddie Murphy's on, so you know it's on. We have the one and only activist. She is a pastor. She's a preacher. She's an inspiration to the entire community. We have the one and only Dr. Lakita Long with us. Dr. Long.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
I feel mighty good, but I feel also privileged and honored to be sitting next to you. Yeah, you are really, I always tell your wife, who's one of my best friends, we share our birthdays together, love you, Tiff, that you really are a voice and a beacon for our community. And over the years, I've gotten a chance to really just pull from that energy and just dial in and zero in and make sure I'm using my spirit influence for what matters. And so it's an honor to be sitting next to you, Dr. Lamont. I'm telling you, it's a real honor. So thank you for the work you've been doing in the community and just really just kind of helping us to do a little bit more.
Amen. So now, actually, I met Dr. Long, was it 2013, and back at Black Diamond Middle School.
Yes.
And I had a homeroom full of African-American students, and I saw you in the office, and I invited you to come speak to them. I still had that video.
Do you?
Yes,
oh,
I
my
do.
God. Whoa.
And so she would come, and she would speak a word of inspiration and a word of hope to those students, and we thank you for all that you have done. Tell us a little bit about yourself for those, the few people out there that may not know who you are, because they see you on billboards all across the Bay Area. They see you all over social media. They see you active in the community. But for some of the people that may not know who you are, tell them who you are and some of the things that you do out here in this community.
Thank you so much. For those who do not know who I am just a person who believes that you can use every skill, talent, and ability that God has given you in order to maximize what he's called you to do. And for some, I'm a marketplace evangelist. For others, I'm a wellness curator. I am all things mental health, all things spiritual health and wealth. And I just believe that along with, we have a counseling center locally. We also have an institute that focuses around wellness as well as personal development. And then we also focus on the physicality of lowering health disparities amongst African Americans. And we're hoping to get this wonderful grant to do this study with about 200 African American women about how you decrease your health disparities by looking at your mental health instabilities. And so we believe that in order for us to be a strong community, you've got to be strong through and through. And I personally lost 50 pounds by doing my program, which is the Walk It Off Girl program. And I just got really passionate because we are just dying from a lot of weights. And lack of information is a weight. And so I just kind of shifted gears a little bit and decided that, if we're going to go on out, then we just need to go out with a full bang and do it as if Dr. Martin Luther King was alive. But it's Dr. Lamont Francis, and I just want to be, who was that sung next to him? Not Aretha Franklin, it was somebody else. Yeah, Mahalia Jackson. I'll be your Mahalia Jackson, and just go ahead while you march on through, you know. So I'm just grateful to be here.
Thank you so much. But you're here to talk about a very serious issue. You may not be able to see, but we do have a number of parents that are in the physical audience as well as the virtual audience tonight, and we are here to talk about a very serious issue, and that is the state of African American students in our public school system and how they have been affected by COVID-19, quarantine, the entire pandemic, its effect on their physical health, their spiritual health, their educational well-being. We're here to talk about the impact of this global pandemic on African American students in our local schools, and we're going to bring it to a local context. So let's talk about COVID-19 and how it's going to affect you, and talk about you as a mother and how it's affected you and your child.
So we have been here in the Antioch Unified School District since my children were born. So I have a sophomore right now who's 15, and she's my daughter, Kayla Bell, and I have a son who's 12, and he's Jalen Michael. And both started in Antioch Unified School District from kindergarten. But from the gate, there were major differential treatments from the both of them, to the point where by the time my daughter was in the first grade, she was in second grade, so then my son was in kindergarten. So the first thing they were like, wow, he's nothing like Kayla. And, you know, kindergarten, what do you do in kindergarten? You play around, you run around. That's what everybody's doing. So it was always a little bit of that was kind of going on. And then it got worse because I'm divorced from their dad, and they were young. I think my son was just a little over a year and a half when they got divorced. So I understand the context that the divorce has on families, but we decided to kind of co-parent well, and start off it was kind of rocky, and then we got things together. But as it pertains to school and education, we were always on top of that. And then things just went south. I just saw my son really like this bright kid that showed up every day at home. He wasn't that kid at the schools. He just wasn't. A lot of name and labeling, a lot of being sent out of the classroom. And at the time, I was just dealing with so much, Dr. Lamont. It was just crazy. And then, you know, I just thought, well, maybe they're right, and, you know, so many things. And until I started peering inside of the window to just kind of get a chance to see with my own eyes. And I was like, well, that kid is doing exactly what my Jalen Michael is doing. But Jalen gets sent out of the class. But little Jenny, she's still in the class. Javier is still in the class. You know, and I didn't understand it until I started asking questions, little questions. And then they brought a black administrator to the school. And then things went from interesting to the second power.
How so?
You know, I'll be very honest, and those who are in education, I'm in mental health, but I've been afforded the opportunity to do a lot of work with our black children. I started this work when I was just 18 years old at UC Berkeley. I've got my own monies and started doing this whole decreasing of at-risk youth in the Berkeley Unified School District. And I want to give great shout out to him. He is no longer alive. Mr. David Starks, thank you for believing in me at Stiles Hall at UC Berkeley. He found the money for me to do a work study program for the black kids in the community. And so I thought that they would be like me. I really care for the black students and the parents and so forth. So I kind of handed my child over to the administrators at the school, if you will, to know what to do with, because the conversation was, your cute little brown baby, he don't want to be sitting, he don't sit in his seat, so I have to come and tell him that you know better. So I thought it was all good until 1 suspension, 2-day suspension, 3-day suspension, and then they were like, we just need him to be at home half day. with no determining timeline of when that was going to end. So my work was hampered, and then there was this feeling coming from the black administrator like there was not really anything I could do because, quote unquote, hey sis, I kind of helped them to not expel your son. So you get kind of that, I don't know what it's called or termed or whatever. So I didn't want him to be expelled or anything of that nature, so I'm still trusting until the trust kind of just ran out.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the numbers in the Antioch Unified School District. Currently, African American students comprise 24% of the student population in the Antioch Unified School District, okay? That's just over 4,400 African American students, okay? To put that into context, we take a school district like Mount Diablo, which is around 5% African American. So we're talking about 24%. That's a huge percentage, right? We all know the numbers. I think the test scores say everything that we already know about how the public school system is failing our kids. 9 out of 10 African American students that attend Antioch Unified School District schools do not test proficient when it comes to English language arts, and then when it comes to mathematics, we know that it is just 7 out of 10 African American students are not at proficient in terms of and proficient in mathematics, in the area of mathematics. So we know that there is definitely a psychoacademic holocaust. Let's call it for what it is. Right? Our boys especially have been drowned, okay, in the Nile, and they have nowhere to float. So we understand what's going on in the classroom, but you mentioned something, right? You mentioned something about your son. They go there, and you see your son being singled out, yes, right? And then as he is being singled out, then you see the African American administrator doing what? Almost, is it pacifying you, or is that what you felt?
It was a sense of, because when you're stressed, I was under a lot of stress. I had, after the divorce, I really didn't work. I did my own self-employment, but I worked maybe 32%, 35%. I remained kind of like a stay-at-home mom because I thought that it would be better for my children to kind of have that kind of consistency. So from the time of 2011, 12 to 2016, then it was like, okay, the kids are of an age, I've got to go back to work, and then I went back to teach at the university level. But it was pacifying, but there was a piece of like, I'm doing you a favor because I'm here, and they really wanted to really hammer down on your son, and so, but because I spoke up for him, you haven't. But when I start really thinking about things, it wasn't really that. I missed the cues of him being bullied, okay? So the bullying piece was huge. Then when there was someone from the classroom who identified who was the bully, 2 young ladies in the classroom, the administrators would not believe them. So that's when I knew something is up. They were like, no, Miss So-and-so, Jalen did not do that. That was him. And they were like, no, it was Jalen. So my son inadvertently became extremely traumatized. Like just getting him to school, there was like a meltdown. Like he was just going to a fit almost, getting on the campus or not wanting to go directly to the class. And I was still trying to piece it all together. And then it like dawned on me. So then they moved him to another school in the district, which helped a little bit better because the principal noticed like, well, he's really a brilliant kid, but he's out of class so much. They have him out. Why do they have him out? And they also put in place the emotional support, which they really didn't do much at the other school. And so we saw a little bit different, but still the treatment was still really the same. And then we get to middle school, and then it really flips the script.
Okay. So you mentioned something. I want to make sure I get my facts right. In terms of math, it was 9 out of 10 African American students are not test proficient, and 7 out of 10 for English language arts. But in this district that is 24% black, did you not know that 27% of the administrators are African American?
Very interesting.
Right? Very interesting. Now, when we look at, however, the teacher population, just over 70% of the teachers are still Caucasian, even though I believe they easily make up less than 10% of the student population. So that gives white students an institutional advantage, right? In terms of, because honestly, we all know this. You may have black administrators, but the bread and butter is right there in the classroom.
It's in the classroom.
It's right there in the classroom, right? And so we have to make sure that we recruit and get more quality black teachers. Now, in this district, let me make sure I get my numbers right, because people try to get on me and say, oh, no, Dr. Francis, your numbers are off. In Antioch Unified School District, 73% of the teachers are white. Only 7% are African American. So 7% of the teachers have African American, but 24% of the students are African American. So there is now an institutional disadvantage, right, for our students. So in a district where you have 7% of the teachers being African American, there is no, and over 30% of the administrators African American, there is no African American Teachers Association or Educators Association in Antioch Unified School District that would help for the recruitment and the retention of quality African American educators. That's an issue. Now, you mentioned the issue with your son, right? How did COVID-19 affect him? So he had to stay home just over a year,
Yes.
right? Almost a year and a half. He's looking in front of the computer, and you said it wasn't the best experience for him as an African-American young man. How did it affect him?
Well, gravely, because there were times when he would be logged in through his Microsoft Teams thing, and we would still get this call at the end of the week where they're saying he's not showing up for class. So my son would say, "Mom," so then I decided I'm going to sit here and watch him log in, watch the teacher call his name, watch him be present, not sleeping, answering the questions, so I can understand the dynamic of what is actually happening. I'm like, are you logged under Jalen White? Are you logged under, what are you logged under? And why do they keep saying, so it was starting to frustrate my son. He was like, they keep saying I'm not here, and I'm here. Like, it was, but that, it's almost like prophetic. I'm here, but they keep saying I'm not here. So I started saying to my son, I'm going to teach you a very important lesson about documentation. I said, just as the teacher has to mark your name off, I need you to mark off the times that you were on and put your name and the time the teacher did the roll call and what were the other students that were also in the classroom. And so he was like, I don't really want to do all of that, Mom. And I said, for your own sake. So sure enough, when we had a meeting, then they were like, well, he said, and he's pulled out the paper. So the empowerment, he's like, no, Miss So-and-so's class. And then he couldn't get on. So then now he's got this documentation. He couldn't get on. He sends a note saying, can't get on. We'll wait for class to start another time and this and other. So it was those kinds of things. And it just kind of whittled him away. Because remember, he's traumatized with school. So he don't trust black administrators. He don't trust white administrators. He ain't trusting the whole school system. As a matter of fact, he's got in his brain to where now he don't want to deal with nothing having to do with school. And he really don't want to fool with nobody that look like him in the school system. And because he's biracial, so he's white and black, and his grandmother is white, and she's an educator, but she's feisty. So she would be sharing with me different types of stuff that could be done, and she lives in a different state, but she says, we don't tolerate that, because she's a fighter for black children, because her, kids are black. So I thought to myself, wow. And she said, we don't take no for an answer, we being white folks. That's what she was letting me know. We don't take no for an answer. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm not pushing hard enough. Because she says, we make noise until they answer. That's what she told me. So, I want to thank grandmother for that truth. And that's when I kind of realized, okay, well, maybe we're trusting too much in people that look like us. And that's a sad state of affairs because it was a time when you had no choice but to trust.
And I think we need to address that, and I think it's important that we address because I am currently a black administrator, but I think we need to be clear with that. The hand that pays is the hand that sways. Okay,
It's obvious
okay.
too.
So if you want to know the allegiance, you have to know who's signing the paycheck, right? All skin folk and kinfolk. Now, there are some great black administrators. However, they have no union. You have to understand, your black principal, as nice as they are, they have no union. With that being said, the superintendent, Stephanie Anello, can get rid of them at leisure. All she has to do is recommend that they that they're fired. Now, they have to go through the board. The board has to approve. Okay, so if you have a board that rubber stamps everything the superintendent says, you gave the power of an entire school district to one person. Okay? And so you have to understand that administrators only have so much power. But isn't it interesting that you have a number of black administrators, right? Black Diamond, Dallas Ranch, all black administrators, right? You have a black principal at Deer Valley, yes. Jack London, right? You have a number of black administrators, right? And when we see the symbol of a black administrator, we say, all is well. Everything is good. And then, but black administrators can only control so much because they cannot be in that particular classroom. So the district and the higher ups at the district, smart enough to say, we'll give you the symbol, but you still have no substance.
Yeah, because the teachers are the substance. I mean, even, my son, the very first thing he said for the 8th grade year, this is the year at the school that he was attending, his first period teacher, black male, is a math teacher. And my son really is brilliant when it comes to math.
Okay.
But none of his brilliance can come out because of all the stuff, So he said, I love my first period class. I love Mr. Burnett. And that's a first because he's never had a black man teacher.
Yes.
And he's like a little bit more than a millennial. He's just kind of in that range. He's probably our age. But, he runs a tight ship. But my son liked him. And he said, I don't know what my sister was talking about, that she didn't like him. I like him. So for him to say that, but there's just not enough. And if a kid keeps walking into a place that doesn't have any representation of them, beside a principal who brings down the whip like a master and a slave, and you don't have anyone else coaching them how to really be, well, it's just going to be the same effect in like our real world system.
Gotcha. Okay. So we're talking about some of these disparities that we see in these local schools when it comes to African American students, right? We understand that there was a digital divide, yes. Right? When you talk about difference between white students, black students in terms of access to computers, Wi-Fi, quality technology, okay? We understand that the disparities that we see right now in the schools were not caused by COVID-19. They simply just magnified them. Yes. They intensified them, they put them out there. The disparities were already there, but we know when white folks catch a cold, black folks get the flu, and things get worse for us, right? So we saw in Liberty Union High School District, after the first semester, they put out in a paper, our kids are failing, we need to go back to school because you have, I want to say it was at least over a third of the freshmen that were failing. A third of the freshmen were failing in the Liberty Union High School District, and they said, we don't care what the number, we don't care who's affected, we got to get these kids back in school. And I thought to myself, isn't that interesting? It's a state of emergency when you have a well-off school district, when you have white students that are failing. A third of them are failing. But that's our numbers every year, yes. Right? And so what are we doing for our kids, right? So COVID-19 simply exacerbated a lot of these things that were already out there in terms of that digital divide. And then if we know in our community, 70% of our homes are headed by single parents, most of that women, and black mothers that are single parents are more than likely to be working on the front lines in COVID-19, right? Because black lives really don't matter. Right. So we are in those jobs that are more at risk of catching it. We got to work because we got to put food on the table. Therefore, we are leaving kids at the house to fend for themselves, to go through technology issues, IT issues, to get on the screen and to listen to a teacher that could not engage them face to face. Now, what do you think they're going to do online? Now they're really tuned off. They saying, you were not engaging and you were boring me face to face. Now online, I'm really asleep. Okay? And so now all we did is we took that achievement gap and we made it higher and higher and higher. You come here and you talked about your son and some of the discipline disparities. And we know that in the Antioch Unified School District, African American students are 3 times more likely than their white counterparts to be suspended. Yes. And even Latinos. That's the crazy part. So even with a third of the administrators being black, we realize things are still the same. Now, I would have to say this. We do need more black educators, but we need black educators who are connected to our community, yes, right? That know how to communicate to our kids and whose loyalty is to the community to which they're served and not the institution that puts money in their pockets. That's what we need, right? Because some of the worst damage that have been done to black kids have been done by some black educators. Let's put it out there, right?
And you know why I'm so passionate is because I was Jalen, my son. I didn't get my act together. The difference between the two of us is that I knew I was really smart, so the grades followed me, but my citizenship grades were always used, okay? But I didn't get my act together until my first semester in 8th grade. But there were 2 black administrators, black women, Dr. Martha C. Doway, who was the principal of my elementary school from kindergarten to 6th grade, and Miss Mary K. Thomas, she was the counselor from 1st grade, is when she came, 1st to 6th grade, who were the angels that God sent. They showed me what black administration, education, educators look like. The one was a Delta, Dr. Martha C. Doway was a Delta. The other one was an AKA. So they exposed me at an early age, and they were proud black women. But they understood the times, and they would tell me, you are not going to get anywhere with your mouth, because I would get kicked out of the classroom. So there was a different kind of way they dealt with it. And I just came back from Atlanta to surprise Miss Mary Kay Thomas, who's still alive, in Atlanta, and she just cried, she's like, oh my God, because she's my mentor still. And I said, you did this. What you see is what you did. Tears in my eyes. You didn't give up on me. Matter of fact, God gave me another gift. And when I had to go to an all-white junior high school, guess who was the head counselor at an all-white junior high? Mary Kay Thomas. And it was God's divine plan, because I was still getting in trouble between her and Mr. Mark Hurd, which was a white teacher, because he just loved teaching. He taught like a professor, which is why but they had a different ump. And today, I don't see any of that. I don't see any ump, black or white. I don't see any desire to want to be in the classroom. And today, you gotta have something for the kids. Virtual or in class. I will say that there was 2 teachers this year for the 8th grade that really engaged and loved my son. I just think we're just off base, just off base.
Discipline issues with your son. If you want to discuss it, you can. If not, that's fine.
And I hold my son to an accountability. I think we take for granted the traumatizing, I call it, like we did, I think you were there, the PTSD of being black. Yeah. I did that with Gwen Carr, who happened to be Eric Gardner's mom, and Reverend Wanda Johnson was our speaker, who's the mom of Oscar Grant. I sit on the board for the Oscar Grant Foundation right now. And so they came and spoke at an event that was 300 people deep. on a Super Bowl night because people are concerned about PTSD of being black, walking down the street, being in the school systems, little black boys being singled out, the brilliant. And so my son, he was picked out. And guess what? He just acted out. He thought, well, you don't want me in your class, so I'm just going to act out when I'm in there. So he did. And I would have to come up to the school and almost lose my job. And, you know, they would say, he needs to go home. I said, what did he do today? And then it got to the point where he wasn't really doing anything to anybody. But now the thing was, he just needs to be out of here. And I was thinking, what? You know? And so after a while, he just didn't want to go to school. No, he did not want to be there. And so after a while, then COVID came and hit. We know about that. Then we had a year to kind of prep him for 8th grade. And then we're 4 or 5 days into a new school year. And I get a call, hey, your baby's been suspended. That's what the administrator says. I said, not my baby. What's the reason? And as I'm asking now investigative questions, now they're irritated. Because prior to the same administrator, I didn't really ask a lot of questions. And this is what I want to say to parents. It's your right. It's your right to ask questions. I don't care if they're black or white. Ask questions. And then there was holes in the story. Well, your baby wasn't here in the classroom. And my son was like, because I had it on speaker. My son was like, I went to every class. And I said, I don't think that's true, because Antioch Unified School District has a system that when you don't show up, there's a system that says, Jalen White was missing with no excuse.
It's called ADA. They need the money.
And I ain't got none of those. And so then she said, hold. She went and talked to whoever she needed to talk to. She came back. She said, okay, so yes, I do see. So that was one. She said, well, he's got to be suspended for 2 days. I said, for what? For a fight that someone else got into that my son happens to know? And, well, yeah, because he brought the baby. I said, no, he didn't bring the baby up there. The parents was trying to register him. So I was like, I need to talk to your boss. This is a black administrator. So I know she wasn't expecting that. So she said, you are more than happy to talk to your boss. I said, what's his name? Gave me the name for Antioch Unified School District and the number. And she said, and I'll let him know that you're trying to reach out to him. Well, lo and behold, I didn't know he was trying to reach out to me. And lo and behold, when I tried to call him, he was talking to my ex-husband. But because we have decided we were going to be really in sync, I had already texted the ex-husband that this is what's going on with Jalen. So he was talking to him. And fast forward,
all right,
that he called me, and I said, sir, I'm sorry. I oppose the 2-day suspension that your administrator has suggested. And lo and behold, he says, I agree with you. I asked the questions to the administrator. Do you think that Jalen intended for the young boy to fight? Did you think he set the fight up? Did you, ask? And wait, I want to put this out there. Unbeknownst, after having talked to the administrator, she never told me that she called the police, Antioch Police Department, on my son. So police department not only came up to the school, but talked to my son without a parent available. And then she tries to tell us in a meeting that they did something out of their norm. This police officer was hostile even towards her, so they bypassed her. I said, you had no business even calling them without speaking to me. Was my son a threat to you? No. Your baby didn't do anything. What, was he cussing you out? See, this is, and I know the Jalen Michael, I know 2 years ago, he would have been cussing you out or something. Because, I don't have to, but did he put his hands on you? No. So you're going to call a cop on a kid that was not involved in the fight? I fought you, sis. I fought you.
So let's and as a current administrator, let's go over some things in Ed Code so that you know your rights. Anytime we suspend a student, you as a parent, you have a right to protest it. Ask questions. Don't assume that everything that is said is necessarily true. What we have to do anytime we suspend, we have to do what they call due diligence. Because if we don't, that suspension can bounce right back. In other words, we have to get statements from everybody. If there's video, we have to review video. right? And so these things, what we want to do is make this suspension as objective as possible. With African Americans 3 times as likely to be suspended than their white counterparts, do you not know how many instructional minutes were missed by African American students? This is why it shows up in the grades, in the test scores, and the disparities there. This is why, how can you have a race of people who invented math? Look at these pyramids in Egypt. How can you have that and 9 out of 10 can't test proficient in an objective subject like math, right? How does that happen? I'm going to tell you how it happens. It happens right there, and it starts in the elementary schools, and it goes all the way to high school. These suspensions, they're handing out suspension days like Halloween candy. You get 2, you get 3, you get 5, you get this. Do you not know your child gets up to 20 days? At 20 days of suspension in a 180-day school year, then your child is put up or recommended for expulsion. So an administrator, I can't expel them, I can recommend. But after 20 days, you recommend that child for expulsion, right? And then that child can no longer go to that school. But suspension days are just being handed out. Now, suspension rates in the Antioch Unified School District have gone down over the several years. But lower suspension rates does not necessarily equate to a better classroom environment or school environment. Numbers can be doctored. Okay, so I'm giving all some secrets. But listen, if I'm getting tired of you, your child, and I don't want to make my suspension rate go up, I'll say, Jalen, you look a little sick, man. Let me call your mama and can you see if you could just walk home, okay? Or you have in-house suspension. What we'll do is, so that I can get brownie points with the teachers, what I'll do, because the teacher says, I can't teach when he's here. Can you just get him out? Okay? All right, here's what we'll do. We'll get Mr. Jalen, we'll tell him to go to the in-house suspension room. The in-house suspension room, here's what has to happen by law, should be ran by a certificated, credentialed educator. Did you not know that? Because if they are on campus, they should have access to someone who's credentialed. Usually the person that is running in-house suspension is a classified staff.
A security officer or a detail custodian or someone that they're going to pay extra money to do a few extra hours.
And so then that's when it becomes, in-house suspension should be just another arm of what's going on in the classroom. In other words, they have the work that's going on in the classroom, they have a credentialed educator that can assist them with the work, and they're still getting the pedagogy they need. That's not what's happening, right? So you may put 15 people that is on in-house suspension, right, in that particular room. Poor classified staff has to go ahead and assist them with things they may not know, and then you wonder why it feels like when you walk in there like a detaining center. Uh-oh, school to prison pipeline, here we go. Okay, prison industrial complex, what are you training them for? Prison, okay? This is what it is. And so you go in there, and this is why kids in their sleep, kids is in there sitting there on their phones, they're doing whatever, and it's a holding cell. Yes. That's all it becomes, right? And so precious instructional minutes. We have to increase time on task. Instructional minutes are being missed because of these historic racial disparities when it comes to suspensions. Now, to protest a suspension, you are supposed to call student support services. Let me say that again, student support services. So who is that department supposed to support? The student. That's what it says, okay? Not the student support services office should not be in cahoots or an offspring of the administrative office. Because a lot of times what you hear when you go to student support services is, I'm going to support my administrators. Wait a minute, who are you here to support?
And that's exactly what ended up being stated, was that at the end of it all, they were like, no, you're right. The suspension should not be. So they did not do the 2-day suspension. I told the father, my son's father, I says, I feel like there's going to be retaliation because we went above, even though they offered us to go above, but they weren't expecting for us to push. And the push came, went back to school, so one little thing, jumped on it. Oh, you can't have the cell phone out. Okay, gave the cell phone up. Then they was trying to call and suspend him for that. I had 2 people from the same school calling me on 2 different lines.
So what is supposed to happen on this? Okay, and you pointed out something, and we have parents, anytime you guys want to come on stage and talk about what's going on with your kids, feel free. But listen, when you protest a suspension, and you are successful and win, I'm going to tell you this, we as administrators don't like to be wrong. We don't like to be wrong. And then that child has to come back the next day when we wanted him home. Anything he does or she does, we going to get. Okay? They on their cell phone, get them. Oh, wait a minute, not in uniform, get them. So they pick, right? They pick on the kids, and they will find something to make sure that they get what they want. This is how the institution is weaponized against African American students. Has this happened to you? Just go ahead, put a thumbs up, put it in the chat if you felt like your child was picked on by the school. And again, it's more than just saying we have a black principal. That's great, right? But again, we're talking about the system and how it was designed to ensure that disproportionality continues year in and year out. Go ahead, you're going to say something.
You know, the other piece, I started really doing some investigations. So then the phone, and then the next day, he gave up the phone. This time he didn't have it out. A kid said, oh, he's got his phone. Gave up the phone, and then the kid told him he's got AirPods in his ears. So they told me that my son threatened to beat up the kid. Now I want you to hear this. Threatened to beat up the kid for telling about the AirPods. Now, if you have the cell phone, son can't do anything with the AirPods. You can't hear nothing. You can't. This is in a PE class. So they said, well, he's got to be sent home for the threat. So I get a call from the school that they came and got him, my son, at lunch. But the incident happened during PE. So the threat wasn't imminent to cause him to leave from the PE class. So you let him go to lunch and the rest of his class. So you send out a site safety person, find him at lunch, not around the kid, not in a fight, tell him, come on with me. He jumps on the golf court. They see the black administrator. The black administrator has my son to get off of the golf court. And she starts interrogating him. Was you about to fight? You was about to fight. He's like, I'm not about to fight anybody. Well, you had your backpack off. It's lunchtime. And I asked a question to all of the adults involved. Did he cuss you out? Was the kid nearby that was in question? You guys walking the kid to class. How come you didn't walk my son to class so he can finish out the rest of his day? He didn't put his hands on nobody? So then they said, well, the kid was scared. I said, who got the statement? What teacher? And come to find out, the PE teacher's a black woman. So we got 3 black women involved, sorry sisters, in a situation. And my ex-husband said something when we had all of them on a Zoom the other day. He said, you cannot make me believe that my one son is going to take up all the resources that you guys are incapable of running your school. If that is the case, none of you are fit to run the school at all. It got so quiet. And then Mr. Mims asked a question that made me cry, and I had to get off.
So what was it?
He said, I'm appalled, because they really, the person from the district said, I have to be in agreement or show that I'm in agreement with the administrators. But I don't think he was fully in agreement with the revocation of the interdistrict transfer. But he said, I have to be in agreement. Then Mr. Mims said this, you guys are telling me that this young man is non-redeemable to where you have to revoke his interdistrict transfer where he's put no hands on nobody. He's not cussed any of you out and has had that history in the past. And now that he's bigger, taller, stronger, he's been able to restrain himself. And you're saying he's non-redeemable? Do you know not one administrator said anything? My son got up. They didn't say, yes, he's redeemable. Tears came to my eyes with an anger that I cannot explain. And I thought about the thousands of black kids I worked with in the jail system, kids that were off the hook, that I had to go in with all of the Holy Ghost into their jail cell because they just been through stuff. And you mean to tell me that I could help them that were highly medicated, that been raped by the boyfriends, all kinds of stuff, and y'all can't help and you couldn't even respond to the statement that he's not redeemable? Anger came over me. And they were like, well, my ex, he finished off talking, but at that moment, I was definitely feeling like an angry black woman.
Our children are redeemable. And that silence spoke volumes.
Oh, it was so deafening.
Okay?
I'll never forget it.
And the child will never forget.
He will never forget it.
Will never forget that a child in middle school, because, and I wasn't on the call, but again, I know that's true, to say that there's nothing redeemable about our kids, okay, no matter what they've done. Listen, I've been in education 20 years, and 20 years of education, I've met a lot of teachers who can't teach, but I've never met a student who couldn't learn. Never met a student who couldn't learn, right? And the system has been weaponized to do this, to throw our kids. Why? Because it's almost as if black lives are not redeemable, or, right, you have to fit a certain definition, or you have to fit into our system. It's sad. And this is why, sis, this is why we're starting our own school. I'm sorry, it's out there. We're starting our own school in the fall, okay? We're starting our own school next year, fall 2022, Allensworth Hamer Academy. We're starting our school for African-American students. We can't sit there and just watch this genocide, the psychoacademic Holocaust, year in and year out. What did Noah do? He built his ark. You know why he built the ark? To preserve future generations. So if you are interested in this school, on the 31st of August of this month, 6 p.m., 55 East 18th Street, you are here. If you are tired, yes, it's going to be a private school. Yes, it is. It costs to be the boss. But you know what? We do not want any outsiders telling us how to educate our own kids. Now, let me tell you something. When you think of the brilliance of our students, when you think of Martin Luther King, do you not know Martin Luther King went to an all-black elementary school? Yes, he did. All-black high school, okay? He went to Booker T. Washington High School. All-black Morehouse, okay? So when you talk about some of the best and brightest, the George Washington Carvers, all of them went to black segregated schools. They went there, and they saw teachers that not only looked like them, but that worked for black superintendents. In other words, not just a black face in a high place. We saw that. We've been there, done that. But we're talking about black administrators who had to live in the community. Does your black administrator go to your church? Do they go to your supermarket? Do you see them in the community? Are they connected to the figures in your community, or do they just work there? You have to ask that. Now, I don't know, and I'm not casting these aspersions on anybody I don't know. But again, you have to ask yourself that question. What is their allegiance to you, or is their allegiance to the district or the person that's signing their check? Have you been duped? Okay? So we need more than just black faces in high places, right? We need, in Antioch Unified School District, I know as we eventually have to come to a close, we need our own office. You heard it here first, and I've been saying it for years, of African-American student achievement. I agree. African-American, not just an equity office, not just for all marginalized people or BIPOC communities. It's African. The root of racism is anti-blackness. We need our own. Now, do not say it cannot be done. West Contra Costa County has had it for years. African American student achievement with our own director, our own coordinator, our own counselor to field these issues. So when black parents want we want to build capacity in black parents, they'll go there. When to field complaints, they go there. And they will be responsible for African American student achievement with the 4,400 African American students in the district. Now here's the deal. We want that office, but we do not want people outside of our community, superintendents, we do not want you choosing our leaders. I'm going to say that again. We do not want you choosing our leaders. We don't need you choosing our leaders. And we don't need any black person that is not invested in the black community out here choosing our leaders. We will choose our own leaders. Does that make sense? The people that are on the streets, the people that are out there doing the work, we will choose who are over our kids. We don't need somebody from out that is black in terms of skin, but is not in with what we're doing, making decisions. We don't need that. We've been there, we've done that. We need our own folk making decisions, and we will hire and we will make the recommendation to the board on who needs to do that. There's enough LCAP money. It's not that the district is underfunded. They have been misallocating the funds, getting this person and that person, getting every nonprofit pimp that talk about they can help black kids, and we got the same stuff year in, year out, the same disparities. While they count their dollars, our kids are still drowning in this educational system. Everything that we need to help black kids is right here in East County, right here. But you don't want to deal with us local because we will hold your behind accountable. So this is what we need here. We need a office of African American student achievement. And if you need somebody to work in it, that's when I'll come back. The return. Yes. Yes. Lazarus is coming back from the grave. Is that all right? I will come back just like Lazarus.
Come on, man. Just
come on now.
Come
on. Come on. I will come back. That's when you will receive the return. I'm coming back too legit to quit. Am I right about it?
And you need to come back, and it's unfortunate that we have to have stories like Lean on Me and the Joe Clarks. We still got those same issues of the Joe Clarks and all the other stuff, but we are trying to make it look like something else different because we look at a LeBron James, and I love what he's doing with his promise school. But guess what? All that LCAP money, all the meetings I've gone to, I've never understood how come an organization like that I run or organization I've been a part of, we never get those fundings. And then when I look at who receives those contracts, I'm not for that you have to be black only, but you do need to be competent. You do need to have some abilities to know how to speak, write, and be able to understand not just one community, all communities. Did you ask me? I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish, read it, and write it. Hello, somebody. Hola, ¿cómo estás? I understand those students too. And I know how to culturally connect with the Pacific Islanders as well. I'm not just mental health, but you don't ask. I know if you don't ask me, you ain't asking my little brown baby girl, you ain't asking my little brown baby boy about what his real interest is, because you think something. Oh, as a matter of fact, you know something. You're talking about him. So as an adult, you're having conversation about whether or not he should be even in this district. How does that happen? So you're letting me know he's a conversation, but not one of worth.
Dr. Long, you live locally.
I live locally.
I have
lived locally for 20 years.
We've had so many. These are two black folks, intelligent black folks with doctorates. We live locally, and we can't find jobs in Antioch Unified.
Always have had to go driving around.
So I want you to think about, some of the most talented people are right here, and we can't get access to our own kids. We can't get access to our own kids because of all of these racist institutional barriers of people that will select and choose. They will say, that's going to be your leader, not him, not her. This person, this is who you follow. And they prop certain people up and they excommunicate other people. Then they go ahead and give certain people contracts. Then they say the other people, no, I'm not doing this just for the money. We're doing this to save the babies. But the money is there. Pay the people who are competent, that are doing the work. That's all that we ask. But again, unless we go ahead, and we need more folks that represent our interests on the school board. All right? So we have another election. See, a lot of times we only come out when the president is on the ballot. We have all politics, you got to remember, are local, right? 2022 is coming up, and as it is coming up, remember what we need to do. We have 2 seats that are up, and then we have to make sure that we have the right people in those particular seats that vote our interests to make sure that we hold the superintendent accountable. Is that all right? And so we got to remember that. Now, we also have to remember the mental health of our students that are coming back from COVID-19, the social anxiety that they have that coming back on campus. We know there are a lot of teachers that are afraid. We got students that are afraid. We have food insecurities. People are struggling in that area. It is tough going back to school. So we ask that you reach out to East County North Star at gmail.com if you need any support or have any questions of how we can support your students in terms of returning back from COVID-19, any discipline issues. If you feel like you need an advocate, we will assist you there. We are here for you. You be there for us. Go ahead and put 5 on it. I got 5 on it. Go ahead and do that.
I got 5 on it.
EastCountyNorthStar.com. Go ahead and get the PayPal out. If you've been blessed tonight, go ahead. You know, pastors always got to pass around an electronic plate or something. We got to do something. Go ahead, put your money. Don't be stingy. Don't rob the Lord. Make sure you go ahead and bless this ministry because you can't beat him giving. Amen. And that's what we're going to do tonight. Any final words that you want to say as we wrap up, unless we have any other parents? No other parents?
I just want to say that thank you for the opportunity. It felt really good to speak, my thoughts and feelings, and I think that the West Coast is not known for this. Actually, I have a lot of friends that are in the East Coast, Maryland, different places, but I don't feel like the West Coast is known for being an advocate for our children in a real way. It ain't never been about the money. I mean, I've got my best friend in the audience, so she knows I took a non-pay just because I was just trying to protect the mental wellness of my children, was really why I didn't work as much when I got divorced, because I knew they were in the pawn hands. I understood it and wish I could have taught them. So I'm all for your school, and I will be your black venture capitalist recruiter, because the money is out there, and I just believe that it's time for the money to come where it needs to come. And if you want to create a legacy for your family and your household, no matter what color you are, then you ought to put your money where it should be, so that we can show you what would happen if you would really invest in not just a black community, in a community of people that you live next to. We are brilliant people. We are kind people, but you know that because you had us in slavery for 400 years. So I just thought I would put that there. Okay, so we kind. We do whatever you say, but the time has changed now, and we need to really, really help our babies. Mentally, they're not well. Mentally, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but mentally our young people are not well, not just blacks. Mentally, young people across the board. Suicidality is on the rise, 125%. My daughter showed me a TikTok where there was 2.5 million young people on this TikTok answering the question, how many of you guys are failing in school? 2.5 million young people across the country from the ages of 11 to 18 said they were failing because of the social thing and how they're doing, and mentally challenged, anxiety, can't sleep. And you think we've seen it? We haven't seen it. We'll see the effects of it 2 years from now. That a vaccine's not going to be able to help. I'm telling you what I know. The young people are going to be screaming when they realize what they have to walk through because of the lack of what adults have not done. So you have an opportunity to join today, not tomorrow. Regardless, it's going to get done. It's going to get done. But you ought to help. Even if your child doesn't come to the school, you just should want to see something that will flourish for years to come.
As we come to a close, we thank you so much, Dr. Long, for your words of wisdom tonight. It is Black August, and some of you may ask, what is Black August? Black August is the month where we celebrate Black resiliency. On August 21st, back in 1831, an enslaved African named Nat Turner led a rebellion. He says, no way am I going to be a slave. He received a vision from on high to liberate his people by any means necessary. Many of you don't know about Nat Turner's slave rebellion. Go home and watch the movie Birth of a Nation, the second one, not the first. Make sure you watch the movie. Read any book you can on Nat Turner, Gabriel Prosser. Read about him, Denmark Vesey. Read about the Haitian Revolution. Read about these enslaved Africans who refused to accept the world as it was, who fought against white supremacy by any means necessary. Oh, don't believe these lies in these libraries. Don't believe them. Don't believe his story, that blacks all of us just went along to get along during American chattel slavery. You never hear about the ones who fought back. So tonight, for Black August, we salute those that have come before us, Mary McLeod Bethune. We salute Booker T. Washington. We salute Stokely Carmichael. We salute Fannie Lou Hamer, Allen Allensworth, those that believed in black excellence and refused to accept the world as it was and knew that there was brilliance in black skin. And so, as a result, we celebrate them and we celebrate you tonight. We thank you so much for watching. Again, go to the eastcountynorthstar.com for your latest news. If you are looking to do something different for your African-American child, we want you to go ahead, Allensworth Hamer Academy.com. Go ahead to that website, and we will see you hopefully on the 31st of this month here at 6 p.m. And so, in the words of Don Cornelius, we wish you love, peace, and soul. Good night, good night, good night, good night. And we thank you so much for watching, and we say peace to those who are willing to fight for it. Take care. Good night.